Hello and welcome to another episode of Radio Odell. I am your host, Chris Odell, here to bring you good tidings from interesting people that I know. Today that person is Dr. Joseph Parent. He is a performance psychologist. He's worked with everything from individuals and businesses to some top-tier athletes, mostly in the golfing realm, as that's one of his specialties. He wrote a book called Zen Golf, also Zen Putting, and that's where I kind of ran into him originally. He's also written a book on I think called the Best Diet Book Ever, something like that, on Zen dieting, which I look forward to checking that out. It's probably an interesting and effective approach to more of a lifestyle of eating properly. And then he has also written a book. I think it's called A Walk in the Woods. It's Meditations with Winnie the Pooh. We're going to talk about that a little bit too, a little bit of a different thing, and not necessarily a kid's book, but it's pretty interesting, although I have read some of it to my daughter. She enjoys it. Okay, so without further ado, we will get into this one, and even if you don't like golf, I highly recommend you check this out. If you do like golf, you're going to really like this episode. If you don't, I still think you're going to find some really interesting perspectives and a conversation that you'll enjoy. I am here with Dr. Joe Parent. You prefer Joe or Joseph? Or
Joe's good.
Okay. All right. So you have written a number of books, and I found you first through Zen Golf and through the Shiva Society, which we'll get into later. You're board member over there. You've written, Zen Golf, and probably, 2 or 3 other golf books?
3 other golf books have Zen Golf, Zen Putting. The subtitle of Zen Golf is Zen Golf Mastering the Mental Game. And then Zen Putting is Mastering the Mental Game on the Greens. Yeah. Then we have Golf, The Art of the Mental Game, which is actually an art book. It is 100 one-page tips, and I still think the tips are good, but the art is really incredible. It's by Anthony Ravielli, who is the line drawing artist who did the Hogan book and many other Sports Illustrated books at the turn of the last century. Yeah. And I have 100 of his drawings, one each accompanying the tips. Then we redid Zen Putting and revised it into a book called How to Make Every Putt. And the subtitle of that is The Secret to Winning Golf's Game Within the Game. But those are my 4 golf books. I have one other in mind too. Zen Golf was 17 years ago. Wow. And it's still selling really well, so I'm blessed with that. Books. But I want to do one called Golfing Your Ball. Okay. And have it basically tee to green, everything in between, and before, after rounds, everything about golf that I've learned since Zen Golf came out.
Okay, nice.
So it'll be fun. But since then, branched out. Yeah. Did Zen tennis with a gentleman named Bill Scanlon, who was famous for getting in a zone, and he beat John McEnroe at the U.S. Open in the semifinals. No, it was the quarterfinals, when McEnroe was ranked number 1 in the world, and nobody was betting against him. He was first seeded in the U.S. Open, and it was a pretty big upset. Yeah. And then Bill also played what's called a golden set, in which he played a set of professional tennis without losing a point. Meaning he won... It's 24 points in a row. 3 of his own service games at Love, but then he broke the other guy's service at Love 3 times in a row. Wow. So that's a 6. That's a golden set. Now he was so in the zone that after the match, the umpire said, "Mr. Scanlon, do you know you won that set without losing a point?" He said, "I know, 6 love, 6 I won." He didn't win a game. He said, "No, not a game without losing a point." And he didn't even know he'd done it. So that's really being in the zone. Yeah. Then I applied the principles from Zen Golf, particularly mindfulness, and a habit change technique that I developed called Ninja. in a diet book. Now, for fun, I named it The Best Diet Book Ever, in case someone was doing a search for what's the best diet book. Well, my title would come up. It's called The Best Diet Book Ever, and the subtitle is The Zen of Losing Weight. But there are no recipes or menus.
Yeah.
It is completely based on mindfulness, helping you make better choices, and this habit change technique that allows you to actually change your eating habits and your exercise habits in the direction that you want them to be. So it's really making these changes without suffering, without pain. And dieting without suffering is a rare thing.
It is, yes.
My wife got on board, my sister got on board, and I lost 20 pounds, 2 pounds at a time, and hardly noticed it.
Yeah.
You know, and just changing some little habits about eating, and I don't feel like I ever got deprived the whole time. So that's
nice.
pretty good.
That is real good.
The last book, and I see you have a copy over there.
I do. I'm going to see if I can get you to sign it for the Kenya.
It's a little hardcover book. It's a gift book that the Disney company asked my sister and me to write, using Winnie the Pooh and friends to teach mindfulness, environmental awareness, kindness, and other real core values like gratitude and self-confidence and self-esteem, things like that. It's written for adults, but it's all brand new stories of Winnie the Pooh and friends.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to use any of the old stories.
Okay.
So it's using new stories with the same characters to demonstrate these qualities and really teach them. After each story are a couple of pages of adult language meditation instruction, either in mindfulness, in a special kindness and compassion practice, in environmental perception practices, gratitude, affirmations, things like that. So it's really for adults to read and enjoy the stories and do the practices, and then share the stories with their kids and help them learn these practices at whatever age is appropriate.
Yeah.
You know, a 5-year-old, you can read them the stories.
Right.
They're not dumbed down like see Dick run, see Spot run, run Spot run.
Right.
You know, it's none of those things. It's really they're enjoyable stories for all ages. But then the instructions are to be applied to different age students. And I did a reading at a Montessori school. Now, the 2 to 4-year-olds, they love the stories.
Cool.
The 5 to 7-year-olds like the stories, and they could sit still for maybe 30 seconds to do the meditations, right? Now, the 8 to 11-year-olds, which is the range that we had, they actually liked doing some time of mindfulness meditation. They liked understanding what the kindness practice was and how they could be kinder to themselves and be more appreciative of their families and things like that. So then I did a talk for the parents that night, and many of them came and said, I'm here because my kid said you have to go to this talk and buy me this book, which was really fun.
That's great.
That we got that from the kids. Then the parents appreciated it, and I gave it to them as a tool to use to communicate with their kids and to build family values. And then the next day I did an in-service for the teachers, teaching them how to use the book as a tool to teach kids these mindfulness practices and have them be more mindful in action in the classroom, which helps the learning process. So as you can tell, that's the one I talked about the most. And it's an interesting span of nearly 20 years from Zen Golf to, this is called A Walk in the Wood, Meditations on Mindfulness with a Bear Named Pooh.
Yeah, that's great. I've enjoyed it so far. I've been waiting for my daughter to calm down just a little bit more. Well, actually, it will help her with that if I can get her to sit through some of the meditative parts more, because I think that's definitely an area where she struggles, is that she's very bright, picks up things fast, but boy, is it hard to get her to just sit still and be quiet, which, I mean, even for adults, it's obviously very hard. But
I would say start with just reading the stories to her. Mm-hmm. And then there are some stories in which Winnie the Pooh goes and sits on his log in the not thinking spot. And stays there and pays attention to his breathing and his body. And butterflies flying by, and the wind blowing the leaves in the trees, and whatever's going on in the present moment. Mm-hmm. So instead of telling her she needs to sit still, you can invite her to sit and observe. Say, let's sit and notice as much as we can notice. And in the book, we call the practice just noticing.
That's smart. Yeah, better approach.
Because when you say you should meditate or you need to sit still, in Zen Golf, let's go back all the way back to Zen Golf. I have a chapter called "Can You Put a Cat in a Box?" And you can relate your mind that way. If you have a box in the corner of a room, and you try to take a cat and put it in the box, you're going to get scratched. You're going to get fighting. Yeah. The cat wants to be anywhere but there. But if you just put them in the room and close the door, they walk around for a while. Oh, a box. And they end up crawling in the box and staying in there. Right?
That is
so
true.
You want to lead people to meditation that way. Yeah. Rather than saying, I'm going to put you in this box and you have to sit here. Yes. You say, what happens when you sit? Yeah. I got to add this funny story. I was listening on the radio as I was driving over this morning. And this comedian came on and he said, so I made some New Year's resolutions, and one of them was to meditate. And I had no idea it was that easy. You just sit down, close your eyes, and worry about think about everything you could possibly be worried about. Make it stop. That was my mantra. Yeah. Make it. So that really cracked me up. And I think some people actually experience it that way. Sure. They sit down to meditate, and I don't even like to use the word meditation because it has this connotation of sit there, close your eyes, say Om, and chant, and go to some astral plane. And mindfulness practice from the Buddhist tradition that I was trained in, and Zen is a form of Buddhism. Right. But everything that I did is not the ritualistic religious aspect of it. It's all about psychology. In fact, one of my teachers who was trained and brought up as a monk said, Buddhism isn't religion, it's the science of mind. I'd agree with that. Anyway, to go back to it, people get this idea that it's this Om and astral planes, and in the mindfulness tradition, it's actually being more down to earth. Not spaced out. Yes. So I don't even like to call it meditation, but we can call it, there's the sitting practice of mindfulness and there's mindfulness practice in action. Yeah. So we want to invite people to do this kind of sitting practice. Now, the reason I mentioned this guy is I sat there and I just meditation, close your eyes and think about all the things you have to do you're worried about.
Get that laundry
list.
But
people get the idea. Sometimes they sit down and they're overwhelmed with thoughts. And they say, this is actually worse. It's making me think more. I beg to differ. What happens is when you sit down and just be with your body, be with your breathing, and notice what's going on, you notice the thoughts.
How much?
When you're caught up in them, it's like the difference between watching a parade and being in the parade.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. When you're in the parade, there's just the float that you're sitting on, the one in front of you, the one behind you. You don't know all the other floats that are going by in this parade. Yeah. But when you take yourself out of the parade and sit there and just watch, wow, how many, do I have that many thoughts all the time? Yeah, you do. Yeah. But that doesn't mean we can't slow the parade down a little, just a little.
Yes. And I'm going to get more back to that, but I want to ask for how did you what was your path to become a writer? I mean, to get into this, as opposed to, I mean, it sounds like you probably had an interest in psychology, and I'm guessing you took a turn somewhere or learned that and applied it to writing, or?
Well, ironically, I never considered myself a writer, and sort of still don't. I write books. Mm-hmm. I have written 7 books, but I'm a teacher and a coach and a speaker.
Yeah.
And I take what I've taught and the lessons that I've done and how they've impacted people, and I share that with others through the writing. As it turns out, I was lucky. I had a really good couple of high school English teachers, and they taught me really well how to write. So the writing, it's not easy, but I know that it comes across clearly.
Yeah, that it does.
And I still remember I had a high school teacher who gave me a little trick for writing. That if you read any of my books, you'll see it in there. That you want to end each chapter with a little bit of a flourish. You don't want it to end on a downer note.
Yeah,
right.
True.
So you want to, you want to say, and if you focus on your target, you're going to hit better shots and have and have a lower score and enjoy your golf that much more. See, that's an upbeat flourish, right?
That's a nice way to keep.
So you want to round it off with a kind of universal and a big deal.
Yeah.
So the joke I have is, I want to test, and if I could add with liberty and justice to all to any of my finishing sentences, then I know it's good.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And so working with your thoughts in this way will reduce your frustration, increase your satisfaction, and make everything feel more worthwhile. With liberty and justice for all. Yes,
and
that works.
You did good, yeah.
And I know it works. Sign it off, right? I remember reading, my brother is a very, very world-renowned specialist in brain cell research at the University of Michigan Medical School. He has a lab. He's an endowed professorship there. I mean, he's top of the field. And I read one of his studies, and he said, the next to last line said, and this more research, and we've just scratched the surface, but this holds the potential for changing the way we look at mental illness and aging and Alzheimer's and many, many other diseases that could transform our lives in the next century. With liberty and justice for all.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
But he added, therefore, further research is suggested.
Yeah, that's just a downer right there on the end. No, he just killed it. Yeah.
just give us the big,
yeah, you need that.
Yeah, it was funny.
Especially if you wanted to
So
keep
he
reading.
laughed and he said, you don't submit academic research papers, do you? I said, no, I write books.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, that's the difference. So he said, okay, got it.
Yeah, big difference.
Understood. So anyway, so that's part of that's the writing part.
Yeah.
But when Zen Golf came, when I was asked to write Zen Golf, it was pure coincidence. Now, I had written half a dozen 2-page articles for magazines.
Okay.
And my intention was, someday when I've written enough, I'll slap them all together and I'll have a book. Okay, fine.
Sure.
Right? Because that's what a lot of golf books were like.
Yeah.
But my sister, who's been in the publishing business for many, many years, as an editor and then as a writer of children's books and editing those as well, was at a party for a friend of hers who was a publisher of a small publishing house. And she met this agent who heard her talking with the publisher about her family. And she said, he said, how's your brother who's the doctor? He said, and how's your brother who's the Buddhist? And she said, he's teaching golf. And this agent said, but isn't it golf?
Yeah.
That sounds really hot. Does he have a book? Now, my sister's smart enough, she said, he's working on one.
Yes, good answer.
Good answer. And the agent said, let me go to my car and get you my card, and I'd like to see it. So my sister called me, and she said, first of all, you have no idea. No agent is looking to get any submissions. They get flooded with submissions.
Yeah,
they don't ask to see a book.
Right.
I said, no? He said, you have no idea. I said, second, they wouldn't go to the car to get a card to get somebody to send them a book.
Yeah.
I said, really? Okay. So it was all like, you have no idea. So I met the agent. I wrote some more chapters. I just sat down with all my notes. And transcripts of clinics that I'd taught.
Interesting.
And wrote 2-page chapters because that was the original idea. She helped me write a proposal. We sent the chapters in, and 2 weeks later, I got an offer from Doubleday to write the book.
Wow, that's great.
Now, this agent was also an editor. Her company is Rinaldi Literary Agency. And she was also an editor. That's why she was at this party, because she knew she had worked for this guy.
Yeah.
So she really was helpful.
Nice.
And one of the things that she helped a lot with, I think, I packed my book with quotes from golfers and other coaches and things. And that's what a lot of golf books are. They're just loaded with all these quotes.
Yeah.
She said, what's with all the... And she wasn't a golfer. She said, what's with all the quotes? I said, well, it validates what I'm saying. She said, you mean it's not valid unless you get a quote from somebody else? And she said, I said, no, it's valid. She said, well, people are buying this to hear your voice, not what somebody else said. I went, ooh. So I must have taken out 3 quotes. There's still a few quotes here and there, but I must have taken out 3/4 of them. She was so right.
Yeah.
It is so much better a book.
That's good.
But most all the chapters are stories of lessons.
Yeah.
So I know they work, and I know they connect with people.
Yeah.
And I've had, it's so fun. I've had people say, I read this chapter, were you in the bushes watching me?
Yeah, right.
Because that's just what I swear
that
happened to me. That's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the purpose of Zen Golf was not just about golf. Its intention was for it to be a life book as well, because I wanted to convey some important principles of mindfulness and it does apply to golf, not beating yourself up. But that's good for life too.
Yeah.
Not doing things that self-sabotage you, things like that.
Yeah.
So a number of chapters, maybe half a dozen, didn't mention golf. Well, the editor calls me up, says, oh, the book's looking really good. Is this thing? Some of the chapters don't mention golf. I said, I know, it's a life book, not just a golf book. I said, it's nice that it's a life book, but we want to sell a golf book. So if you read Zen Golf, you're going to encounter a few chapters where either in the middle or near the end, there's just one paragraph that starts with, and in golf.
Yes.
And then it goes, and then it doesn't mention golf again. So then you'll know that was one of those.
That appeased them.
I have one more story that goes with it, and that is the original title
I was going to ask.
Enlightened Golf.
Yeah.
That was the original proposed title.
Sure.
That I proposed. Enlightened Golf.
Probably get tired of seeing all the Zen this and then Zen that. And
that is exactly what I said. You are so right, because now, besides the Buddhist tradition, there's something in Asia called the Shambhala tradition, and it's a mythical. I don't know if it's mythical; it might be real, but it's a legendary kingdom. It's like the book and the movie Lost Horizon. That this guy discovers this hidden kingdom in the middle of the Himalayas, and it's in a lot of cultures around Asia that there's this hidden Central Asian kingdom, which is an enlightened society. And so conducting yourself in that way, you have the quality of being a warrior, but not a warrior that wages aggression, but a warrior over the ills and evils negative aspects of society.
Uh-huh.
So, so we used a lot of these principles when we talk about playing golf.
Mm-hmm.
So originally it was going to be Shambhala golf, but nobody would know what that is.
Right.
So I called it enlightened golf.
Mm-hmm.
And then the editor called me up one day and he said, so we talked with the sales team. And they think enlightened golf's a little soft.
Mm.
What do you think of Zen golf? And I went, oh, no. Zen cats and Zen dogs and Zen pet rocks and, come on. This is right around 2000, 2002.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, oh, really? Come on, man. Okay. They said, the editor said, well, you can call it whatever you want. Yeah. But I'm not sure the sales department's going to get behind it. He said, so let me see if I understand this straight.
Yeah.
I call it what I want. Nobody ever sees it.
Yeah.
I call it what you want, and people will read it. I said, I only care about people reading it. You can call it upside down golf for all I care.
Right.
Let's call it whatever you want. Yeah. They said, good. Can you write a couple more Zen stories in there? I went, all right. Sure. Ironically, I wrote, because many of them were traditional Zen stories that I have in the book. Mm-hmm. And I got those from different sources, but I had to write some new ones. Mm-hmm. So I took a traditional metaphor in the Zen tradition, and I wrote a story about a clay statue that a child discovers is actually covered, it's clay covering gold, which is a metaphor for our basically good nature, that sometimes confusion and anger and negative emotions cover up that gold, but we never lose that as our basic nature. It turns out that ends up being the signature story of the book, and the most important story in the book, and one that I use in other books and in my speaking as well. So who knows, and that's another chapter in the book, who knows what's good and what's bad. So they were right. Zen Golf was a better title.
Yeah.
And adding those stories only made it better.
Yeah.
Then we designed the cover, and I said, well, every golf book has to have some green in there, on the bottom. They said, we like just sky and clouds. And I said, golf ball in the corner of the sky? They said, that's fine. No I said, no green at all. Nope. Well, guess what? It's a completely distinct cover. It's the only golf book that's just true. Blue and white cover. Yeah. And then, as you can't see this on the podcast, but the shirt I'm wearing is light blue, sky blue with white lettering, just like the book cover. So that is the brand.
Embodied it. Yeah.
That is the brand.
Well, it certainly works. I could see the resistance on both fronts, especially you see so much of the Zen this and that, or the Tao of whatever, but it does work in the end. It has a good sound, and at least I'm just glad somebody who did a good job covered the Zen golf area, because it could have been horrible. So it was good. You did great, and it certainly is a life book. I mean, easily any of those lessons could apply outside of golf, and for anybody who knows golf, most of golf, you can relate to your life quite clearly. In fact, it's a real good barometer of where your head's at when you step out there, more than any other sport I know in a lot of ways.
Well, it was my vision in writing it that basically at some point in the vernacular, in the language of golf, they would start referring to that kind of golf where you're out of your head, in your body, fully in the moment, the effortless kind of swing as a Zen moment.
Yeah, sure.
Ironically, I didn't know that the Daily Show, the comedy show, would end every session with, your moment of Zen.
Moment of Zen, they used to do that, yeah.
So I actually recorded a little video for, I don't know if we're going to use it. I'm doing a Zen Golf app now.
Oh, cool.
So people are going to be able to find that.
Oh, nice.
We're going to start each little video clip with, and now your moment of Zen golf.
Cool. Good.
Like that. But it's being talked about. Nick Faldo uses it when he's doing commentary on golf tournaments. And I was walking with David Toms, the PGA champion, and he said, "Yep, that was my Zen wedge." I said, what made it a Zen wedge? He said, I didn't think much, and I didn't force it, and it just felt like the club was swinging itself. So that's my Zen wedge. I said, that's great. It's in the language of golf.
Yeah, I need more of those in my bag.
Oh, he wasn't talking about the club.
No, I know, yeah, but
shot. Zen wedge shot.
Yeah, spiritually, yeah, yep. It is a beautiful thing when that works in golf or anywhere else. So how did you run into Zen and Eastern teachings and things like that? Where did you encounter that?
Well, let's see.
Or what attracted you?
I was 19. Mm-hmm. Just about to start my sophomore year in college. And I was in engineering at Cornell.
Yeah, okay.
Because all I knew was math and science, and my dad was an engineer, and that's the track I was going to go on. Yeah. I was good at math and science, and I remember having a conversation with myself. Now, understand, memory is like a dream.
Sure.
It's not. It's basically an emotional selection of and distortion of things that happened in the past.
Yeah.
But I do remember having a conversation with myself, and it was almost like the two voices had separate identities and didn't really know what the other was thinking. Mm-hmm. I said, well, I don't think I want to be, grow up with a house in the suburbs with a white picket fence and 2.2 kids and 9-to-5 job like my dad.
Yeah.
And the other voice said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, and this is interesting. I still don't know where this came from. The answer was, I want to teach.
Yeah.
I think the only teaching I'd done, I think I'd tutored some 5th grader in math when I was in 8th grade or something like that. I mean, or 8th grade when I was in high school. I don't remember, but I really hadn't taught.
Yeah.
So where did that come from? That's an interesting question that I do not have an answer for.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, what do you want to teach? And I knew what that meant was what grade level. So I know what I was like in high school. I don't need to be a babysitter. I don't want to be part of that. I like college. College is good. Okay, I'll teach college. I'll be a college professor. Okay, that's settled. And then the voice said, well, what do you want to teach? I said, well, I can teach math. I'm good at math. And then the voice said something interesting. My own voice. He said, well, why don't you teach something you're interested in? Yes. And then I had to ask a question. What am I interested in? And the answer came, I'm interested in why I do the crazy things I do and why other people do the crazy things they do.
Okay.
And I knew that I didn't mean whack job crazy, like psychopath crazy.
Right.
I knew it meant the self-defeating, make the same mistake over and over again, say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, make not such good choices, that kind of crazy. And not abnormal psychology, just psychology. I said, well, that sounds like psychology. So on the spot, I was walking down the quad. I walked over to the psych building. Now I had to transfer out of the College of Engineering into the College of Arts and Sciences. Parents weren't that happy about that. and changed my whole course load. And then they said, they had a questionnaire, why do you want to major in psychology? And being a smartass, I wrote, to find out why I want to major in psychology.
I'm sure somebody got a kick out of that.
Yeah, well, I think I covered my ass and said, and to understand the human condition, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. A few of those things just to cover my ass, but cover my smart ass. So then I started taking psych classes, and then after my sophomore year, I actually did summer stock. I was an actor.
Okay.
Which is why I have recorded all of my own audiobooks.
Okay.
All the audiobooks are my voice.
I'm glad you did that because they
you'll
were
hear
nice
my
to listen
voice.
to. Yeah.
And I know that I'm saying it the way it's meant to be said.
Yeah.
Now, I met some people in summer stock, and the friend of one of the guys that I met, we were out talking about stuff, I think we might have been smoking something or other, sitting out in a field. Maybe we're eating ice cream. Maybe we're
That's a likely combination.
Something like that.
Yeah, right.
On a summer day, it was pretty nice. Talking about the meaning of life and death, and heavy. Rapping in those days was not with music. It was just talking. It was heavy conversations. Remember, this is 1970.
Okay. Yep.
So, heavy rapping was not music that rhymed.
Yeah, you guys were just going.
We were just talking about the deep things.
Yeah. And
I said, well, I think it's like this. And he said, well, I think it might be like this. And I said, where'd you get that idea? And he said, this book I read. And in the language of the times, I said, lay it on me.
Yeah.
So I read this book about Buddhism and Tibet. And I remember as I read it, I turned the pages and I said, that makes sense, that makes sense, already think that, already think that. That makes sense, already think that, already think that. And I finished the book, and I put it down, I said, I'm a Buddhist, and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And it was like meeting an old friend. It was not like, what's this about? It just completely made sense.
Yeah.
And I'd explored other spiritual traditions, but then I read something that was actually taught by the Buddha, who was a human being, not a god. That should be just to make that really clear. And he said, you could title this little paragraph, "Don't take my word for it." and sometimes it's called "Don't believe." Don't believe just because I said so. Don't believe because wise people said so. Don't believe because it's written in special books. Don't believe because a lot of people think it. Don't believe because wealthy people think it. Don't believe because this. Test it out and find if it's true in your own heart.
Yes.
And then believe. And I went, finally somebody's leveling with me. And I felt like they're saying, we don't have a monopoly on the truth. In fact, we're not even going to tell you what the truth is. We're going to give you tools to find the wisdom that's already in you. And I went, I'm in. So that's the way I want to approach it. So that's what made sense for me. And that's how I got involved in it. And then met some great teachers. I had great fortune of meeting great teachers. And then one of them was my original main, my primary teacher was a Tibetan who escaped from the Chinese when they invaded in the 1950s and 60s, and then moved to England, lived in India for a while, then moved to England, was invited to England to teach, and then was invited to North America to teach. So he was my original main teacher. I'd studied with some other lay teachers before that, but he was like, wow, this is the guy who understands my mind. And his main student was an American, and I became a student of his as well, and helped him on a number of projects for our teacher. And one day he was at a program that was, I think we were holding it at some conference center, and the afternoon was off, and nobody, he didn't have anything to do, and some of us were going to play golf. He said, golf, really? My dad was into it. I'm just not into it. And they said, well, you can sit alone in your room. He said, all right, I'll come. So he came to play golf, and he hit a shot, and it took off. He went, oh. I get it.
Had that moment,
He had that moment, right? Where he swung, he hit it, the ball went click, whizzz, and into the air, and he went,
it's an amazing feeling.
I get it. And he actually really got into it. And I became his regular golf buddy, because I would convey things about golf and help teach him. And then we'd talk about meditation afterwards, and it was nice. Fabulous. And we gathered any of the other meditation students of our teachers, and I put the golf groups together. So out of that, I I took notes when he was talking about how meditation and golf are connected, and how mindfulness and golf are connected, and how your self-concept and your thinking process work.
Yeah.
And his experience on the golf course, and a lot of that went into Zen golf.
Yeah.
So I started teaching based on lessons I was sort of giving him. And I had another friend who invited me to co-teach his clinics, and I said, "What do you want me to teach?" He said, "Everything we've been talking about. Routine, visualization, breathing." That was it.
There you go. Yep.
Breathing, visualization, routine. So those are the first actual classes that I taught with this other golf pro, who is still a very close friend of mine.
Okay.
He ended up being invited to teach in Bhutan, in the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan, and he just wrote a book about his experience. You can probably find it under golf and Bhutan.
Golfing in that kingdom.
Not too much. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Which it's a kind of travelogue and meditation and golf book at the same time.
That sounds like fun.
So we're still close friends. And that little golfing society evolved.
Yeah.
And out of that came out of working with him came my writing and my teaching.
Okay, interesting. So did you complete a course of study then in psychology specifically, thinking you were going to go into a practice of that? And
well, I never really wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to teach. Remember, that was
right. Okay.
And so I did get my PhD in psychology.
Okay. And did you think you were?
And I thought, as I was going for it, that I was going to teach in college. But remember, again, this was 1970-71.
Yeah.
Okay, so Vietnam War. I was a conscientious objector as a Buddhist.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I transferred from engineering to psychology, I graduated a half a year early. I decided I'm just going to travel around the country.
Yeah.
And find a nice place to live and maybe learn a trade and just live a simple life.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten all about teaching in college and any of that stuff. I'd also forgotten that I'd applied to graduate school.
Oh.
I had forgotten that I'd applied to graduate school. And as I was starting my little trip around the country with a couple of friends to see where did I want to end up?
Yeah.
Actually, before I took the trip, I met this Tibetan teacher, and his two centers were in Vermont and in Boulder, Colorado. Upstate Vermont on a farm, so it was a kind of country retreat. And then in the city, in Boulder, there was a little city center that was in an office building. And then people lived around in town. So I decided before I took my trip, I was going to either live in Vermont or Colorado. I didn't know. So as we're leaving, a call comes from the University of Colorado. My mom calls me and says, "Oh, the University of Colorado called." I said, "What do they want?" "Well, you've been accepted to graduate school." I went, "Oh shit! I forgot that I applied to graduate school." And I went, all right, I'll talk to him. Because I really wasn't interested.
Yeah, sure. Okay. You got a plan already.
So one of the faculty members gets on and says, "We're happy to have accepted you." And I said, "Oh, that's great, thanks." I said, "What's the program?" And he said, "Well, it's not a master's leading to a PhD. It's a 4-year PhD program. You just get the master's as you go."
Ah, interesting.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
What else? And he said, "Well, all your tuition is paid for."
Okay.
I said, "That's interesting. And you're where?" He said, "Boulder, Colorado." I went,
"Oh,
okay. So I'm thinking about going there anyway." All right, well, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I said, "Anything else?" He said, "Oh yeah, you get a living stipend." I said, "Okay, hang on a second. Let me get this straight. Okay, you're gonna pay me to go to school, which I know how to do very efficiently, in I graduated summa cum laude or something like that. School, I was very lucky. Yeah. School was not hard for me. Huh. So you're going to pay me to go to school, which I can do with plenty of time left over, in the town where I was thinking about moving anyway, and you're going to pay me to do that, right? I said, okay, what's the catch? Yeah. I said, well, I knew there was you do have to pay fees. And I said, what are the fees? She said, $15 a semester. But if it's a hardship, we can work something out. I said, no. I think we can work it. I think that's okay. Yeah. So that's how I ended up in the PhD program at the University of Colorado. Yeah. At the same time, I was studying with my Buddhist teacher. So I did dual tracks and became a senior meditation instructor and practice and study in the Buddhist tradition. At the same time, I was getting a PhD in Western psychology. So that's always been the unique thing about all my books and all my coaching and teaching. I draw on both the Eastern wisdom tradition of working with the mind and the Western psychology tradition of working with the mind and putting them together.
That's
so great. It's ancient wisdom, modern practicality, all put together, which is really fun.
Oh yeah, so those are very complementary. So it makes sense. I mean, it's like you said, in some ways, Buddhism seems to me to be more of less of a religion, more of a psychological, philosophical, set of tools. Yeah.
So that's how I got my. That's the academic side, and that's how I got my Dr. Joe Parent and PhD in that way. Yeah. At the same time, I was doing the Buddhist track.
Yeah.
Then in the 90s, both of my teachers died within 4 years of each other. 187, one in 90. So that was very sad, and I felt like I needed, it was time to immerse at that time, I was in charge of one of the centers that we had created. And I said, it's time to really immerse in the practice. Yeah. And one of my teachers had created this monastery in Nova Scotia. And they were offering a special program. In Tibet, there was a traditional practice of a 3-year, 3-month, 3-day retreat that you locked yourself in a group.
Yeah.
And nobody left for that period of time. Wow. I said, well, for Westerners, let's do it 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
Over 5 years.
Okay.
Over 6 years. So that's 6 months over 6 years is 3 years.
Right.
Plus a little bit.
Sure.
So I signed up for that and ended up doing that.
Yeah.
From 91 to 97.
Wow. Okay.
And when I got out, that's when I was going to be doing a career in stress management, but my friend invited me and said, why don't you teach golf? I said, let's see. So I could have a little cubicle-style office or work out on the golf course. Which one?
That's a tough one.
Tough choice. So when we're done with this podcast, we're going to go out to my office, which is the golf course, which is the Ojai Valley Inn.
Now, has that? Well, I guess the way that you do things, it probably wouldn't hurt it. But you know how sometimes when, especially certain people in certain jobs, you start mixing the thing you love with your work, it can be sometimes ruin both a little bit. Have you had any troubles with that? Or I think you may have picked a unique combo that actually perhaps doesn't do that.
Let's see. Let's take a golfer, any golfer, who thinks that they know some stuff about golf. And when they play with you, they're eager to tell you what to do.
Yeah, right.
While they play golf alongside you.
Sure, yeah.
So I tell people what to do while I play golf alongside me, and they pay me to do that. So no, it doesn't get tiring. Now here's the catch. And and the point is, I want to make people happy, and I would offer this to them even if they didn't pay me.
Yeah.
And that's how you know you're in the right job. If you would do it, even if you're not getting paid to do it, you got to be in the right job.
Yeah. Good point.
So I love teaching. I love those aha moments. I get tingles when somebody gets it and performs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I went, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Good.
So I still get, after all these years, I still get goosebumps when somebody gets it and then produces, and they go, wow.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. I had a little girl, 9 years old, and people ask, when can you start? My youngest student was 7, but we only did like very rudimentary kinds of things. And then I've had a couple of 8-year-olds and this 9-year-old, and I helped her with her alignment and said, why don't you use your eyes this way and think about this and do it in this order. And she did, and she hit this really good shot. And I said, so what do you think? In this cute little voice, she said, that's a game changer.
That's awesome.
I love it.
That's gotta be nice.
So about 2 years later, I was at Riviera Country Club at the LA Open, whatever the sponsor is. I don't even know who the latest sponsor is. It was Nissan, then it was Northern Trust, and it was this. I think it's Genesis. Now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, and this little girl comes up to me. She says, Dr. Parent? I said, yeah. She said, I think we worked together a couple of years ago. And I'm going, like, worked together? You know? Or she said in a funny way, like, I coached with you a couple of years ago. No, I see. Oh, you got a lesson from me, right? Yeah. And I said, so how you been doing lately? She said, oh, great. I won the World Championships for 11-year-olds in North Carolina this year. I went, yeah, that's kind of good.
Yeah.
I guess it was a game changer.
That's great.
Good. So, no, it's very satisfying. And I work on my own game. And there are times when I feel like, this game sucks, and I think I'd rather teach, and I'll just teach, and I'm not even going to try and play. Yeah. But then you hit a key, you get a key, and just lately I was doing, and if you listen to your own lessons, sometimes you get the best instruction. I had a beginner out there.
Be hard to do.
I had a beginner, and she was not that athletic and having a hard time, and I said, why don't you try this, try this, try this, try just throwing the club. Feel like you're throwing the club head at the ball. And she goes, ping, hits a good shot. I went, oh, that was pretty good. I'll show you what it looks like when I do it. And I go, okay, take it back, throw the club head, bam! I went, holy crap! That was farther than I usually hit it. Why don't I just do that? I think that came from years and years and years ago. A guy named Fred Shoemaker came up with this thing about throwing golf clubs, and he happened to video this guy throwing a golf club, and when he tried to hit at a golf ball, it was a terribly awful, awkward swing. But when he loaded up and then tried to throw the golf ball out into this field, when you video it, it looks like perfect sequencing, and it looks like a great swing. Yeah. And the guy said, where did you learn how to swing like that? He said, I didn't. It's how I throw. And you go, ta-da. Yeah. So this one it must have been deep in the recesses of my mental file cabinet that I pulled that tip out for her. Yeah. And then I used it for me, and I went, wow. Yeah. So I am playing great.
That's awesome.
I am playing great. And you learn from teaching. And sometimes, I've heard this expression, you teach what you need to learn. Yeah. So I guess I still need to learn golf because I'm still teaching golf. Yeah.
Well, it seems to be an infinite lesson in many ways.
It's true.
Yeah, it's a sport you can really keep going with. It's very.
But I've been more excited lately. I mean, that's always fun. But I'm more excited in getting the word out through this family book that I wrote. Yeah. Helping people with a health issue, which is the dieting thing.
That's great.
And doing keynotes. And my next book the working title is 4 Kinds of Yes and No. Mm-hmm. And it's a communication, it's about communication and relationships, both work, at home, any interpersonal relationship, and your relationship to yourself. And it's basically about making commitments and whether or not you fulfill them.
Good.
It's not exactly the old business motto, under-promise and over-deliver, because you don't really want to under-promise.
Sure, yeah.
You want to accurately promise.
Yeah.
But you don't want to break your promise.
Yeah.
So my introduction uses a Dr. Seuss story called Horton Hatches the Egg. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Well, this elephant, Horton, and it's so preposterous, but that's the fun things about Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
Is walking along, and there's a bird sitting on an egg, and she's bored to tears. Just says, I got to get out of here. And she tricks him into sitting on the egg, saying, I'll be right back. She goes on vacation. And he sits on this egg through rain and hail and snow and people coming and making fun of him. And somebody says, why don't you just leave? And his answer, do you know the line? Do you know the answer?
It's been a long time, actually, so I don't remember.
Okay. I meant what I said.
Oh, and I said
what I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%.
Right, yes.
So because he made a commitment to sit on the egg until she got back, that was the commitment. So the commitment is, I said what I meant. I said that I would do this, and I meant it. When I said it, I meant it. So that's honesty.
Right.
I made an honest commitment. And then I meant what I said means I fulfilled that commitment. So I said what I meant. What you say is your commitment, and that should be made with honesty. And then what you mean to do should be to fulfill that commitment.
Yes, yeah.
So that's what the book is about, and it's a really easy concept to work with, both in everyday life and at work.
That'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to that one. I know that, and hopefully there'll be some good tools and techniques in there, because I've found in my life anyway that it's easy. It gets more slippery the more you can rationalize and think yourself out of things and go, well, I said this. Oh, but if you spend enough time, you can rationalize pretty poor behavior sometimes. And it's
one of the chapters is I have no problem quitting smoking. I do it every night.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another one is my favorite bar sign: free beer tomorrow. Guy sees the sign. Says, "Oh, okay," leaves, comes back the next day, says, "I'd like my free beer." He says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, the sign." He says, "What does it say?" It says, "Free beer tomorrow."
Yeah.
But it is tomorrow. No, it isn't. Nope. It's today.
Yep.
It's never tomorrow.
Good marketing trick.
Yeah, that's right. So.
Oh, good.
So there are a lot of old sayings and things that work with that, and it just shows that people know it, but they don't know how to change. And right from the Zen Golf and all the books, and particularly the diet book, I introduce a system of changing habits that I discovered in a 400-year-old Buddhist text, believe it or not. Now, I've named it the Ninja System.
Yes.
Ninja stands for Necessary Intention and Non-Judgmental Awareness. And what is a ninja? A stealth warrior, right?
Right.
So this happens subconsciously. The necessary intention is your intention. You got to really want to do it. There's an old psychologist joke. It says, how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? Only one, but the light bulb has to want to change.
Yes.
Now, that's the psychology point of view, that if you don't want to change, you won't change.
Yeah.
And there are other studies that show if you aren't impelled to change because of circumstances, you won't get over the inertia threshold to do that. Okay? So you say, you can really want to change.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to lose weight, but I don't really want to... But I also want to have that ice cream.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So just wanting to, but then if the doctor says, guess what? If you don't lose weight, you will die soon. For some people, that's not even enough.
Yeah.
But for others, that's the compelling factor. So that's necessary intention.
Yeah.
You need to really want to change. NJA, that's NI. NJA is non-judgmental awareness. If you beat yourself up about it, if you rationalize and judge yourself based on how well you're doing or poorly you're doing, and it's all about that, you also won't change.
Yeah.
That whatever you put a lot of emotion into only fuels it to come back again. So a more objective observational quality of non-judgmental awareness lets you move. You will naturally move in the direction of your intention. So that's how that system works, and I explain it more in each of the books.
Sure, we'll give it all.
But that's the basis of it, and that's what I want to be able to share with people. And it's a pretty simple habit to be aware of your the commitments that you make, and assess them when you make them. Am I being honest with myself? Am I being honest with the other person?
Yeah.
And if it's just for yourself, or am I being honest with myself? And then I like to say, always have a buy when. Because if you don't have a buy when, then you can say, well, I haven't gotten around to it. I will do that. But if you have a buy when, then you know there's a demarcation point. This is the commitment you made. This is the buy when. Yes or no.
Yeah.
That's what I call the 4 kinds of yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. No, I didn't. That's the problem. Yes, I will. No, I didn't. That's the only problem. So we want to reduce those.
Yeah, that's great. I'm very curious about the diet book too. Yeah, it'd be very, very interesting. I'm sure my wife would like to read that because I know she struggles with trying different things and has a harder time with it maybe than I do. So
no recipes or menus. And you can eat no restrictions. You can eat anything you want.
Yeah.
Just know what choices you're making.
Yeah.
And is it worth the calories? And
Right.
that kind of thing. But I don't put any recommendations for nutrition in because it changes all the time. I actually have that in the book. It says chocolate, coffee, red wine. Good for you or bad for you. If you don't like the answer, wait a few months.
Yeah. It's very true.
Science will determine that it's something else. I also include a scene from a Woody Allen movie called Sleeper. Have you ever heard Sleep?
Yeah, it was one of my favorite, one of the first ones that got me into his films.
Okay, so Sleeper. I'm not necessarily a fan of Woody Allen's behavior, but
yes,
his
I know
movies,
it's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate, but as far as this film goes, he gets an illness and he's cryogenically frozen for 200 years.
Right.
And so he comes back 200 years in the future. And 2 doctors are talking. And they say, what did the subject ask for breakfast? He said, we asked for some weird things, organic yogurt, honey, and tiger's milk. And they said, oh, yeah, I think centuries ago those were foods that were considered to have magical healing properties. And the other doctor says, but didn't they have deep fat and fudge and steak and ice cream sundaes? And he goes, yeah, but they thought they were bad for you. Completely the opposite of what we understand now, science understands now to be true. He goes, unbelievable.
It's great.
Yeah,
and it's
remember
already.
That scene?
Oh yes, I do, and it's almost pretty much occurred already, and yeah, some of the science has already reversed to half of that.
Paleo. Let's have,
Sure.
South Beach. I mean, the Atkins diet. Let's have fat.
Right.
Paleo. Let's have steak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You could go a little nuts trying to keep up with it, and certainly I have because I've done a lot of time studying all that stuff. But yeah, I think.
But you have to find what's right for you.
Yes, that is true. Yeah.
And the Mayo Clinic. I have a quote from there in the book, and they said, "Hey, look, here's what we figured out. No one diet works for everybody.
Yeah.
You have to figure out what works for you. That's why I don't include any one diet in my diet book.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a diet book without a diet.
Yeah. That's smart. That's good, too. It gives people something to, figure out on their own, but you give them the tools to just...
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
That's great.
That's been fun.
Good. Well... let me ask you about the Shiva Society, and then we'll try to wrap it up because I know we wanted to keep this one, and we'll let people look forward to another episode.
Yeah, that's good.
So the Shiva Society, we met in that, and for people who are unfamiliar with it, you want to give them a summary of what that is?
Yeah, Michael Murphy wrote a book in 1972, and he was on his way to an ashram in India to meditate and be a yogi. But he was a golfer. He'd been a college golfer, and he stopped in Scotland to play golf and met this strange golf guru character who was a golf pro, but a very eccentric one.
Yeah. Good way of putting it.
Now, we don't know how much of the story is true.
Yeah, right.
And Michael won't say. But he wrote, in just a few days, wrote a book called Golf in the Kingdom about his adventures with this guy who basically was teaching him to play golf in a way that was leading to his enlightenment. Now, Michael was always fascinated by extraordinary experience, paranormal experiences.
Right.
So he was fascinated when somebody... somehow saw a dime or a ball mark sitting on a green 350 yards away. How could he possibly see that?
Yeah.
How could a sharpshooter from 100 yards away nick four corners of a quarter? It's technically, in a certain way, it's impossible because you can't account for wind or anything else, and air currents, or the unique delivery from the barrel of the rifle. Yet somehow they will this bullet to hit exactly where they will the bullet to. People have said that they've seen Jack Nicklaus hit shots that he actually willed to stop turning in the direction they were turning and then continue on to a target. Who knows? But the point is, that's what Michael was interested in. So Golf in the Kingdom has a lot of that, but it also has a lot of really wonderful wisdom sayings, like not being a perfectionist and enjoying the walking part of the game. And many other kinds of principles. Now, one of his fans, Steve Cohen, now Michael also founded Esalen. And Steve Cohen was a Gestalt psychologist, and he was teaching a course at Esalen, and I think Fred Shoemaker ended up teaching a Golf in the Kingdom course loosely based on the book, but working with mindfulness, working with extraordinary perceptions, and walking the course without playing it, playing golf on a hole silently, and working on creativity. And the theme that really stuck out for Steve was what Michael was conveying in his book Golf in the Kingdom was about the beauty and mystery of golf, which is cool. So Steve had an event and started essentially a fan club for the book, and it was the kind of mystical, eccentric golf pro that Michael met and studied with in the book was named Shiva's Irons.
Right.
So that's why it's named the Chivas Iron Society. I guess he could have called it the Golf in the Kingdom Society, but whatever.
Sounds better as it is.
It is what it is.
Sure.
And it was people of like mind wanting to play golf together in a way that expressed the beauty and mystery of the game.
Yeah.
One of the aspects was looking back to the beauty of the origins of golf and how it was originally conceived and originally played. So every now and again we'd have an event that would have featheries, which were the original golf balls, which were leather pouches stuffed with feathers were gotten wet and stuffed into these little leather pouches, little leather spears, and then sewed up. And when the feathers dried, they expanded and made the whole thing very hard.
I was wondering. Okay.
So that was the first golf ball.
Yeah.
Then they started making them out of gutta percha, a rubbery material, and then they started evolving into being filled with rubber bands and covered with balata. I don't know what that's made, what the actual substance of balata is, but it was the covering over that that could withstand square impact. It would still dent it a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you hit it with the edge of the club, it would cut and be smiling back at you.
Busted open.
And then they went to Surlyn and other plastic materials that were more cut-proof.
Okay.
And now they've evolved so that they have the qualities of the earlier golf balls, but without, they scuff instead of cut.
Right.
So,
right.
So anyway, so we and Steve, the society always treasured early golf writing. And current golf writing that, again, expressed some of the mystery and beauty and quality of the game, not just analysis and writing a report of a golf tournament.
Yeah.
And then it's gathering people together and doing these practices, like the one club hole, or the silent hole.
Yeah.
Well, when you do the silent hole, the rule is from the time you step on the tee to the time you walk off the green. Now, some people say when you pull your ball out of the hole, but I like when you walk off the green.
Yeah, I prefer that.
You're silent.
Yeah.
And the volume of your thoughts is extraordinary to observe.
Yeah.
And you also notice more in nature because you're not talking so much. But you hear your own thoughts and it's a really eerie experience to be standing on the tee with everybody. And you smack a drive right down the fairway. There's not one nice shot. So you learn to appreciate your own efforts without needing external confirmation. So it's a great practice.
It is, yeah.
Now, you and I were at Bandon Dunes last year, and it was an interesting response to the one club shot.
Oh, yeah.
Now, one of the things about the society is not to be so preoccupied with score. Yet there were a few people who were a little preoccupied with their score. And of course, even though we all have this urge to get better, one of the sayings from the book that I think was Steve's favorite was, excuse my language, F are ever getting any better. Right. So that's a common toast at society gatherings. We raise our glass and say F are ever getting any better. Okay, but it was very interesting because I was kind of the leader of the group and assigned which hole it would be that everybody would play the one club hole. I knew the course.
Yeah.
And one group came back and said, we didn't do it. We didn't really want to do it on that hole. We thought we'll do it on another hole, and then we forgot about it. And then there was another group where 3 of them did it, but one guy said, I don't feel like playing one club. I'm gonna do my own thing. Yeah. Which was interesting. Now, I kind of gave everybody a hard time and said, you're here for a reason, and it isn't to post a score. Yeah. And it's about camaraderie and shared experience. So
have an experience.
Why don't you take a chance and be creative and share the experience? Yeah. I did it at one club, and I'd picked a 5 hybrid, and I was in a greenside bunker.
Yeah.
and I figured out a way to get it out of the bunker with a 5 hybrid.
Oh, that's great.
And we had a young caddy with us that, this was at Cabot Links up in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
And the caddy saw me do it, and he said, "What club did you use?" I said, 5 hybrid. He said, "I'm coming back out here to this spot to see if I can do
try that.
Yeah, it's exciting. So that was a couple of years ago. Then last year, we got to the 8th hole at Bandon Dunes. And I said, the caddy said, "Well, we have cross bunkers on this hole. So you can clear them, or you can go around to the left." I said, "What if I aim a little left and still try to clear them? I'm going to play this hole just with a driver." So I hit it over the cross bunkers. Now I have to hit like a 150-yard driver. So I made a half swing and punched it up and got to the front of the green. I have to kind of hit a little chip with my driver. But it's no different than if you were chipping with a hybrid.
Sure.
It's just a little bigger hit.
Yeah.
And it went across, and I 2-putted and made a bogey. Not bad. So that was so much fun. I'm going to do it on the 9th hole too.
Yeah.
And then that was fun. So I said, I'm just going to keep doing it until I have a shot I cannot hit with a driver.
Yeah.
Made it all the way through.
That's great.
Played 11. I played 8 through 18, 11 holes.
Really?
With just the driver.
Done it that long.
My caddy was not that amused that he was carrying a whole bag of clubs.
I'm sure.
And all I was doing was hitting drivers.
Yeah.
No putter, no chipping, just driver. So that was one of my most fun experiences that I could ever have on a golf course.
Yeah. That's great.
And I scored better on the back 9 with a driver than I did on the front 9 with 14 clubs.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
I'd done 2 of the holes. 2 of the holes, I was on the green in regulation. I was closest to the pin.
Yeah, that's great. I found with that exercise that I'm better at putting with a 7-iron. Go figure. I went, "Are you kidding me? How am I hitting more putts with the 7-iron than I am with my putter?" All right, well, so you learned something, and it's fun. Yeah,
it's the mind. So the whole point is, and then we get together for
bring it all together
to talk about things and it really is an environment of like-minded people who are interested in the depth and understanding of the beauty and mystery of golf, but with a background that matches up so much with Zen Golf. That's why I became on the board of directors, because it matches up with what I teach, and that is we're not just working with our state of mind to play better golf. We're working with our state of mind on the golf course to have a better overall state of mind.
Yeah.
And this goes, maybe we'll wrap up with the part of this. It goes all the way back to when I was in college, changing from engineering to psychology. So people say, "Well, so what do you feel like you accomplished?" And I said, "Well, I chose not to stay in engineering and try to develop a cleaner burning engine to reduce air pollution. I went into psychology to help people have cleaner burning minds to reduce cleaner running minds to reduce mental pollution." So that's my job on the golf course and in the workplace, because I do a lot of keynote speaking and talking about these principles, teaching mindfulness, teaching the habit change technique to work with commitment, communication, and experience and stress management in companies and associations all over the world. But to be able to do that and reduce mental pollution, that's my job.
That's a fantastic job. Thank you for doing it. I've certainly benefited from it, and I'm looking forward to playing some more golf with you today, and talking with you more.
Sounds good.
So, Ed, just the last thing then, how can people find out more about you? What's the best way to find your works and things?
Well, to start with, everything that I do is on the website that has my name. It's drjoeparent.com.
Okay.
That was handy to have that.
That's nice.
And then the golf is within the zengolf.com website, but that's going to morph into the Zen Golf app.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And that's something that I go on and put stuff on in the forum. And it's got little clips of a lot of my teaching, both audio and video.
Yeah.
And we'll stay current with current events there too. So,
cool.
So I want to encourage people for the Zen Golf app, and then my coaching, both executive coaching, golf coaching, life coaching, all of that at drjoeparent.com.
Great. All right.
Come find me.
Excellent. Sounds good. I think people will be interested. So
yeah, and I have a special offer that if people want to have me come in to do any business coaching for their company, that it comes with free golf lessons.
Oh, that's a pretty good deal. I like that. That should go over well in a lot of places. Great. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. And
thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Great to work with you.
Excellent. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Radio Dell. If you want to find out more about the show or myself or our sponsoring company, you can head on over to chrisodell.com. That's CHRISODELL.com. And just a little word about our sponsoring company, since it allows me the time and then the freedom to be able to do this podcast. That is a company that I started back in 2007. It is a hemp gear company. And what does that mean? Basically, we have bags and clothing and all sorts of other different accessories and fun things made with primarily hemp textiles, which are antimicrobial, breathable, of course, very sustainable, but we don't get too hippied out about it. It's just good, functional stuff, good for you, good for the planet, whatnot, and we just try to make some really interesting and useful things. So I hope you go check that out, because that does help support the show. That's at dsgear.com, dsgear.com, and like I said, you can find a link to that over at chrisodell.com as well. Thanks again for joining us. Be seeing you.